So thank you. So thank you everyone for joining Savera UK Youth. I'm speaking out with my Jama webinar. So we have 2 British Sign Language interpreters on this webinar. So if you need these interpreters, please make sure you have your Zoom settings on gallery view. All right, so my name is Juliana. I'm a Savera UK Youth volunteer, and today we are holding this event to raise awareness about honour-based abuse and other harmful practices, and encourage you to join with us and speak out. We just want to be clear that some of the topics discussed today, some of you may find upsetting. So if anyone feels affected by the topics raised, please do take the time out of the webinar and speak to someone that you trust. So Savera UK is an organisation that supports those at risk of honour-based abuse and harmful practices. If you feel you need to speak to someone about anything you hear today regarding yourself or someone you know, then please don't hesitate to get in contact with the helpline, which is available Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. And the contact details will be shared in the chat box down below. So the chat is disabled for participants, but we will be sharing information there, and we will also be taking questions using the Zoom Q&A function instead. So I'm now going to hand over the microphone to Hannah, who is also a Savera UK Youth volunteer, and we'll go into more detail of today's event. So Hannah, would you like to take over?
Hi, so I'll just run you through a bit about what we're doing today. So this event is part of Savera Youth UK's activity throughout July to mark the National Day of Memory. It was established in 2015 on the birthday of Shafilea Ahmed. She was an A-level student from Warrington, and she was murdered by her parents in the name of honour. So we're doing this in her name. Today we will hear from some of our wonderful ambassadors and campaigners. I will hear from Jama, Kiara Mohamed and Payzee Mahmod. So Kiara and Payzee will be bravely sharing their stories about their experience from honour-based abuse. If anyone has any questions to ask them, there'll be time at the end in the question and answer bit, so if you just want to put them in the function, that'd be great. So this quiz will be hosted by Maya, and it will test your knowledge and understanding of the abuse that we'll be talking about. So then you can help us break the silence when you'll be more educated on the matter. So there'll be a poll, and we'll be giving out three lucky winners. They'll be announced at the end. Today we want to raise awareness of honour-based abuse and other harmful practices such as FGM and forced marriage. Honour-based abuse is a form of abuse which is perpetrated in the name of so-called honour. So those at risk of honour-based abuse are often told that they have brought shame on their family or community, and so they must be punished. And unfortunately, in some situations, this ends up with them being killed in the name of honour. So these honour killings relate to the act of murder carried out by family members and other people in the wider community. And there's often a collective nature, so many people agree in carrying out these awful acts. And this is actually happening a lot more than you realise. It actually happens here in the UK. So each year there are between 12 and 15 honour killings, and they're just the ones that we know of. So join us. Let's speak out and make a difference. Let's help these voices be heard, and let's be the generation that ends these harmful practices. We're now going to show you a short video about why we're speaking out. And that's everything, so I'll pass you on to the video.
I'm speaking out because I've heard their stories of pain and trauma that has brought darkness and horror to their lives. I've seen their tears. I'm speaking out for those whose voices have been shut down or haven't been heard.
I'm speaking out because I want to remind everyone that there are still harmful practices going on around us, and I think that they should definitely not be forgotten about, especially during this pandemic.
I'm speaking out for the next generation, so a change has to be made. Freedom should be theirs.
I'm speaking out about female genital mutilation, or FGM, because it is the lack of awareness about female genital mutilation which helps to sustain its existence.
People need to understand that these problems are still occurring in society everywhere around the world due to the ongoing problem of the coronavirus. This may be difficult for the people who face honour-based abuse.
I'm speaking out because I'm against harmful traditions such as FGM and other practices.
I'm speaking out because I want people to know that there's no justice in killing people in the name of honour.
I'm speaking out because as a young person, I know that young people have so much power on what's actually going to happen in the future.
These practices are often seen as culture, but instead they inflict a lot of pain on individuals. Therefore, through Savera, we're able to display their suffering and pain and life experiences, as in many cases, the victims themselves are unable to speak out due to abuse or peer pressure, and therefore we can bring attention to this matter.
Because we have so much power, we need to come together and start facilitating conversations on what harmful practices are, such as FGM, forced marriages, and other harmful traditions. And we need to have conversation, open conversation with other people, other young people, other adults, and explain and educate why they're actually harmful and how we can actually come together.
I'm speaking out because no one deserves to be a victim of FGM.
I'm hashtag speaking out against FGM. I'm hashtag speaking out against forced marriage. I'm hashtag speaking out against honour-based abuse.
I'm speaking out because no one should be forced into marriage.
I'm speaking out because I want people to know that there is help that they can get. They can still reach out to Savira, that they do not need to remain silent.
I'm speaking out because there's girls all over the world that need our help to make their voices heard.
Is it me to talk now? Yeah. So hello, I'm Jama, and I'm an ambassador for Savera UK. And I wanted to get involved with Savera in particular because I come from, well, half my family are Muslim, a Somali background, and I know it's still very, very common in the Somali community and the Muslim community that young women go through FGM. And I didn't experience it personally, but I have aunts and family members and people that did, and I know how hurtful it is and how harmful and how dangerous it is, and also how shocking it is that it's still a thing. And I couldn't even believe when I found out statistically that it's still happening in this country, in London, Birmingham, Bristol, wherever. And yeah, it needs to stop, just like everybody else said. So I'm here to help spread awareness also, and to do a quiz, to answer some questions and see how much people know already and what they can learn from this, because yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've learned just through working with these guys, and once you know more you can do more. So yeah, quiz time. Should I go? Answer through the poll. So the first question is, honour-based abuse doesn't occur in the UK. I mean, I slyly answered that for you, so is that true or false? And then you answer the question. Okay, shall I go to the second question? So, question number 2. I mean, usually, okay, well, the results have come back from the first poll, and 100% of people have said it is false, because that is correct. It is very false. As I just said, it happens in the UK. I actually have memories from being in school, like primary school. So I don't know how old you are, maybe like 10. And loads of the Muslim girls would go on holiday and they wouldn't come back for a long time. And some would come back having experienced FGM. And that's not that long ago. I'm not that old. So I don't know, are you going to have a word about that, or should we go on to the question?
Yeah, so we're going to be explaining why the answer is false and afterwards. So the answer is false because honor-based abuse all happens also in the United Kingdom. So you can find it in every country. It doesn't matter whether it's America or in Africa. So yeah, it does happen in the UK as well.
There we are. Okay, so question number 2 is, honour-based abuse can't affect underage individuals. is there an age limit for FGM or honour-based abuse? So yeah, your answer, is that true or false? Can it affect underage individuals? I mean, usually in a quiz you'd do like funny music and stuff, but I think this is a bit more of a serious topic, so I won't sing a theme tune.
I think you should sing for us, Maya.
Okay, poll in place, the poll in place. Question, what's the answer?
That's good.
Thanks.
I
Off
think
the
you
top
should
of the
release
dome.
your own song called Paul, I think.
Well, answer the poll. Go to the poll.
Yeah.
Or poll. Maybe one day.
Yeah. I'll be looking forward to that.
I might release a song. I just don't think it will be like that. Okay, so the results are in. 96% of you said that is false, but 4% of you said that's true. And the correct answer is false. And I'll let you explain why.
So there is no such thing as underage when it comes to honour-based abuse, because anyone can be affected by it, and if anything, it is actually easier to subject young people to honour-based abuse because they're more easily controllable and therefore not able to restrain against this abuse. And also because younger individuals are easier to manipulate than adults, they may lack an understanding of what is actually happening to them because they are conditioned to believe in this illusion that something they have done is shameful and that the only way to restore honour to the family is by their own abuse or even murder.
Right. Which is so scary because when you think about when you're like 11, 12, and if your parents are telling you to do something, you just think that it's right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wait for the truth. Yeah, exactly.
Question number 3 is, only women are affected by honour-based abuse. Is that true or false? Is it only women that are affected? There's the poll, there's the poll. Are you going to answer true or false? Poll. It's going very far. Okay, the results are in, and 96% of you said that it's false, but 4% again said that it's true. Only women are affected by honour-based abuse. That is, I'll let you answer.
So the answer is false, yeah. Many people believe that it is only women who are affected by honour-based abuse, but that's not true because men also, any gender really can be affected by honour-based abuse. So, yeah.
Doesn't discriminate genders.
Yeah.
Question number 4 is, there are many cases of honour-based abuse that go unreported. Is that true or false? Do you think that we know about the cases that are going on? Okay, so true is 96% and false is 4% again. Someone just keeps getting it wrong, but it's not wrong, it's just learning. And the correct answer is true. There are.
Yes, so honour-based abuse is a covert and concealed crime. People within communities that perpetrate honour-based abuse are anxious and afraid of speaking out about honour-based abuse because shame is projected by such communities even onto the act of speaking out. So speaking up for your human rights actually can lead to a violation of your human rights because of honour-based abuse. And this fear of speaking out is precisely why only 12 to 15 honour killings are reported each year, and why the statistics of those affected by honour-based abuse can only ever be an estimation because so much of this abuse is perpetrated behind closed doors. And as I touched on before, those at risk of honour-based abuse also may not recognise that this is abuse because they may feel that this control and abuse is perpetrated out of love because they've been so manipulated by this ideology.
Yeah. And also as well, it's the whole thing, like you just don't want to go against your family a lot of the time, or there's all these people that you look up to telling you one thing, it's hard to break out of it. Question number 5 is, there are multiple perpetrators of honour-based abuse. True or false? So here we are, and 100% correct here. There are multiple perpetrators of honour-based abuse.
Okay, so it's true because they are usually multiple people who are involved in the abuse. That can often be the family members, as well as the members of the community who share the family beliefs. So they usually get it involved together, especially if the family is close to the community, they'll gather together as well.
Right. So it often starts at home and it's somebody in the house a lot of the time as well.
Yeah.
Question number 7 is, 6. Honour-based abuse is only physical abuse. True or false? The poll. Okay, again, everybody got that spot on. It is not only physical abuse, that is false.
So there are actually many different strategies that constitute honour-based abuse. These include domestic abuse, physical abuse, murder, financial and dowry abuse, sexual abuse, forced marriage, being held against your own will or taken somewhere you don't want to go, assault, female genital mutilation, and psychological abuse, which includes strict monitoring, humiliation, and threats of violence, and so on.
Yeah, which is even scarier because not only can you not see most physical abuse anyway, but mental and financial and all those things get kept such secrets.
Which makes it harder to prosecute, yeah.
Right. Number 7 is, family are bringing back honour through honour killings. Is that true or false? Is this the way to bring honour to your family? True or false? Right, so true 9%, 38% is true, and false 63%. So what's the correct answer?
The correct answer is false. Some families and communities believe that individuals must be punished for bringing shame on them and believe their doing is right and will bring back honor to them. However, there is not actually honor in killing or abuse. So there is no honor for killing someone because they don't believe on what you were trying to force them in, or when you're abusing them. So there's no honor in that.
It's the same with any kind of abuse. Violence doesn't equal peace. You're not going to get anything good out of hurting somebody else. I think it's a very dated state of mind that harming somebody or causing physical pain to somebody is going to bring any goodness out of any situation, and that includes honour-based violence. So yeah, that is false. Question number 8. Honour-based abuse is used as a strategy to repress and control female sexual pleasure. Is that true or false? The poll. The poll, the poll. Here we are. So yeah, honour-based abuse is used as a strategy to repress and control female sexual pleasure. Is that true or false? True, 91%, and false, 9%. So,
honour-based abuse is used as a strategical technique to control female sexual behaviour and to repress female sexual pleasure. Within the communities governed by the ideology of honour-based abuse, the signification of shame is projected onto female sexual pleasure. So girls and women have been abused and murdered by their families and communities for reasons including talking to a man, having a boyfriend, having sex before marriage, wearing revealing or sexual clothes, and having been raped. And since honour-based abuse is based on an ideology that shame must be expunged to restore honour, and since female sexual pleasure is deemed to be shameful by honour-based abuse communities, such communities mutilate the genitalia of girls and women, which is known as female genital mutilation, as a form of honour-based abuse, since these communities believe this will expunge the shame associated with female sexual pleasure and restore purity and honour to the families and communities of girls and women. But going back to Michael's question, the question Michael just answered, FGM doesn't bring about purity. In reality, it is a strategical technique to inhibit female sexual pleasure with the aim of physically, psychologically and sexually repressing girls and women in order to ensure the ascendancy of patriarchy.
So there you go. That is not the case. Last two questions now. We've got arranged marriage is a form of honour-based abuse. Is that true or false? Because we hear a lot about arranged marriages. Is that a form of honour-based abuse? True or false? Also, you can find out more about FGM and honour-based abuse on the Savira website as well. If you've missed bits or joined late, then just go to the website and have a little read through.
I forgot to say that, so thank you.
No, it's all good. Okay, so this one's more in the middle. 68% have said it's true that arranged marriage is a form of honour-based abuse, and 32% have said that is false.
So the answer is false. Many have the misconception that arranged marriage is the same as forced marriage. This is not the case. In an arranged marriage, all those involved in the wedding agree and consent to marriage. A marriage becomes forced when there is pressure from families or the community. For the marriage to go ahead, those refuse marriage are often shamed or punished. That's when sometimes honor killings tend to happen as well.
Okay, so there's a clear difference between arranged marriages and forced marriage. And that's where it gets the abuse. Okay. That's interesting because I know a lot of people would be confused by the two because they have similar meanings. Honour-based abuse is a concept rooted in religious teachings. Is that true or false? Does it come from religious teachings? Okay, so 26% said it was true that honour-based abuse is a concept rooted in religious teachings, and 74% said that is false. And the answer is that it is false. Would you like to explain why?
So religion is constantly used as an excuse in order to justify, sugarcoat and to sustain the existence of honour-based abuse. And by extension, people within honour-based abuse communities are manipulated and conditioned to believe that this abuse is a religious obligation. And this is also why a lot of people feel that they can't get involved with honour-based abuse or talk speak out against it because they think they would be interfering in someone's religion. But there's no written evidence in any holy book that honour-based abuse is a religious obligation. So the reality is that this is just a mass violation of human rights, a strategical technique of repression and control for people within those communities to assert power over others, and nothing can sugarcoat this. Culture and religion cannot be used as excuses or justifications for honour-based abuse anymore. So we need to remember that it is not religion that we are challenging when we speak out against honour-based abuse, but we are disturbing a patriarchal and repressive ideology which affects women as well as men, non-binary subjects as well as the LGBT community.
There we are, because I think that is a very big confusion, and as you said, it's the reason why a lot of people wouldn't want to speak out against it or get involved, because you don't want to mess with people's religious beliefs. But it's not a religious belief, it's something that's just wrong in every way, shape or form, in every culture. So thank you for that. And that is the end of the quiz. Bit of a different quiz, because it's not like woohoo, but I feel like that is super educational, and hopefully a lot of you tuned in have taken some things from this and learned bits and can now go on and have further conversations and educate people around you, or even be allies to people that you may know that are dealing with FGM. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, there'll be prizes and they'll be announced after the event. So yeah, if you got those right, then you will maybe be getting a prize.
Question, sorry, coming from behind the screen and part of the team. I wondered, Maya, whether you could sort of start off by letting us know when you first learned really about honour-based abuse and harmful practices, when you sort of realised they were a thing, if it was something you were always aware of, or...
Yeah, I didn't have a clue about it. I don't think I ever had anybody mention it to me. It wasn't a spoken of thing. But then, as I mentioned briefly at the beginning, when I was in primary school, so yes, 5 or 6, I noticed a lot of girls that I was friends with would go on holidays, or think that they were going on holiday and be taken away with their family and be gone for months. And then when they'd return, they wouldn't really speak out about what had happened, but it was kind of like an unspoken thing that we knew that something had gone down while they were away, and it was FGM. And a lot of the time there would be no anaesthetic, no like any kind of proper, it wasn't done in a hospital or anywhere official or medical. It was usually, from the girls that I had spoke to in the past, done somewhere off with family members involved. And I don't want to get too graphic, but just very, yeah, I don't even want to say it, but just not, how do I word this without, you know what I mean? They basically were getting taken to have these procedures without any medical treatment and without any proper doctors or anything going on, against their will almost, just because that's what their family had wanted them to have done. And they just had to do it because they didn't want to be the ones to speak out against it. So yeah, probably from primary school, I learned what FGM was firstly.
Okay, thank you for that.
I would also like to invite our participant to send question in our Q&A box for Maya, just to ask question about her work with Savera and why she probably believes it's important to speak out. So if you have any question that you want to ask her, just pop it in the Q&A box. Thank you. Sonny asked, I also got autism myself. Got diagnosed with autism in 2015. Many people have let me down and I've gone through mental health, depression, loneliness. What advice would you give? How do you deal with loneliness? And this question is obviously to Maya. So if you want to answer.
Okay, so how do you deal with loneliness? I don't know, it's hard, because I even think in my industry, you have millions of people around you and you can have people following you, but at times when you're on your own, it can still feel like the loneliest place in the world. And I think it's just about having that one person, whether it's a family member, a friend, a colleague, just one person that you trust that you can unload off to and talk to as much as possible. And even if you don't have that person, writing things down really helps me. I used to keep a diary and it really helped me out when I'd have all these thoughts and feelings in my mind. I just write out how I was feeling that day, And then the next day you can look back on it and be like, okay, I was feeling like that today, but something's changed and now I feel like this. And it's like, I don't know, if you don't have an actual person to speak to, channeling your thoughts and putting them down on paper and actually just getting them off your chest in any way, shape or form, I think is a good release. So yeah, try and find somebody or look to somebody that you're close with and speak to them. But if you're lonely and you haven't got someone like that, then writing things down is amazing. But there are a lot of like chat rooms and safe spaces online for people that suffer with mental health and dealing with mental health to talk to each other. So maybe I should send some in at the end. But yeah, there is always somebody out there going through something similar to what you're going through. You just you just got to look in the right places. So I'd say write things down, find somebody that you trust, or look online for safe chat groups and safe spaces where you can enter.
Yeah, that's great. An anonymous asked, how did you get involved with Savera?
How did I get involved? I reached out to Savira because I felt like throughout my career I've done loads of bits and bobs and works with different charities, and a lot of the time they will come naturally where I'll be doing a job and they'd already have a charity that they want you to be involved in, or you do different things for the bigger charities like Children in Need and ones that already have a lot of support. But I wanted to work with a charity that didn't have as much support or as much reach, and also that were dealing with issues that aren't as widely spoken about, so that I could use my platform to launch the message wider, I suppose, because yeah, there's so many people, my friends even, that are like, no way is this still going on. And you do need people with bigger platforms to speak openly about these things, so they're not so taboo and they're not such secrets. And yeah, I'm at Afra, and yeah, it just made so much sense because of my family history, and I wanted to be involved instantly. So I think it's a good pairing.
For you from Anonymous, and he says, we are a women's charity called Tomorrow's Woman Viral, venturing into work with young women in our newest project. How would you suggest as a service we support young girls who may have not yet disclosed that they've been a victim of honor-based abuse?
It's a hard question because, as we discussed before, it is such a thing to speak out, and it's so hard for these young women to even get the courage to speak to their friends, let alone to a stranger. So I'm not sure, but I think what would be a good idea is for people to start going into schools more and just having the discussions openly, so that if there is anybody in the classroom that is experiencing FGM or honour-based violence, that they can see, oh, okay, look, there's this platform here. But I think because, as I said, it's so hard for them to speak out, we need to actively put ourselves in those spaces and speak about it just regularly, so that they can see, and so that they just have the option to come forward at the end of a discussion or the end of an event and speak privately, rather than going through the process of, maybe reaching out, which takes a lot of courage. But starting in schools, I think, as we know that it happens so young, more talks about FGM in school, adding it to like PSHE talks and all of those kind of things, just making it as normal as possible to discuss, so that these women and young men can openly discuss it freely and not feel like they've got this scary secret.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also, if you need any help this is referred to the women's charity, Savera also provide like educational session with like schools. So like if you need to have talks, you can just contact Savera and they can provide you that extra support when coming into schools and having an open discussion on honor-based abuse. Anonymous is thanking you, Maya.
Oh, good. My pleasure.
Do we have time for a last question? Okay, I don't believe we have enough time. So we'll pass you on to the next stage.
So I am going to be introducing you guys to Kiara Mohamed. She'll be sharing her story with you. She is a survivor of forced marriage, FGM, and honour-based abuse. Kiara is an artist and a proud member of the LGBT+ community. She doesn't limit herself to any sort of expression or art. So whenever you're ready, Kiara, share your story whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Naomi. That was a really nice introduction. As Naomi said, I'm non-binary, and 11 years ago I ran away from home because a wedding was planned, and it was something that I knew that it was going to happen to me. So lucky for me, I had years to plan to leave home. And how long did it take? It took me a year, actually. It took me a year to plan to leave home. I used to live in London, in Stratford, and now I live in Liverpool. And one of the questions, somebody said, well, how can we talk about honor-based abuse in school? Is it worth it? Growing up in that environment, you don't really know what's right and wrong. You believe your family, and you just don't think there is more to life than what you experience. And I think if I had known that FGM was wrong at the time growing up, I didn't know I had that done to me until I was, like, years later, I was pregnant, and then a nurse said that to me. Sorry, I just saw a text saying Kiara, and I don't know. Oh, sorry guys. I just saw in the group chat through this panel discussion, somebody saying my name, so I thought that maybe I'm being told to cut it short. So sorry. Aren't Zoom so weird? And yeah, so for me, if I had learned about forced marriage, honor-based violence, FGM as something that should not have happened to me or should not be happening to me or to the people in my family, I would have left sooner. I left when I was 18, 19, and I really wish that I had known so much sooner, because there was so much suffering. And that's why I am a survivor ambassador. I really believe in speaking out and showing that leaving home is the first step, and then figuring out, who are you? What do you do next? Will I survive this trauma? Were questions that I was grappling with. And yeah, you will survive it. There is more to life. You start to figure out who you are and what you want to do. And through Savera, I just want to show that as proof that there is more to life, and there is hope, and there is support and network, and there is love. All those things sound so simple, but to people who experience abuse, especially this type of abuse, they really don't believe that the outside world even cares about their lives. And there are structures to help out. So it's really important for me that this is my life's work, and in the artwork that I create as well, this is the topic that I really explore. Any questions for me?
Kiara?
Yeah?
So what advice would you give to anyone who wants to leave home, but they're too scared of, like, the consequences?
It's really important to have friends that you trust, someone that you trust. I had 2 friends that I fully trusted with my life, because this is a life and death situation. I fully knew that my family could kill me, and my grandmother spent years trying to kill me. So it wasn't, to me, it was really important to find people and friends who I felt could understand me. And so I'd tell my friends what was happening at home, but even to them, to be honest, I never really fully told them what was happening. I just gave them tidbits, and then as the planning of the wedding was getting closer, I was saying to them, my family are planning this, and then one of the things that happened to me, I was housebound, so I wasn't allowed to go to college, I wasn't allowed to go out, and so I communicated with my friends and I made an escape plan, and I asked my friend to give me her camera, and I said to her, when I ask you to ask me for this camera back, just know that's me asking you for help and I need a way out. And so for months I had her camera, and then as the wedding plans were getting ahead, my grandmother moved me to another part of London, in North London. I didn't really know my way around, and that was a way that if I had escaped home, they knew I couldn't really move around. And so I contacted my friend and I said, here's my sister's number, here's my grandmother's number, you should call them and ask for your camera. And for about a week, my friend, bless her, was like ringing up my grandmother and my sister and saying, Kiara took my camera, I really want it back, it's not even my camera, like my brother's gonna like be so mad, please get her to give me my camera back. And my sister was so annoyed, and she gave me the keys back to Stratford, our home, and she said, am I gonna see you? And I think at that moment we both knew this was the last time we were gonna see each other. And I said, of course, yeah, I'm gonna come back. How do I get back to Stratford? And she told me the way. I went back to Stratford. I completely wiped the cookies off my computer in my room because I had been researching for a year. I cleared out the history, I packed my passport, packed my bag, and stuck the keys back in. And I went to my friend's house. We went to the police station, and I said, hi, I'm running away from a forced marriage. And they were like, you're an adult technically, you're not running away. This is Hackney, we deal with knife crime. You're an adult, you can go and figure it out. But the good thing is I had the forced marriage unit number saved on my phone because I had planned every step of the way. And I called them and they told me that, I said to them, London is not a safe place for me. I'm Somali, I come from a very large community. They all know me. Even if I don't know them, they know who I am. And I knew staying in London wasn't safe. And I picked Liverpool because my best friend lives here. And so every step of the way, I had to figure out on my own how to do it. And it actually hurts me to think, now that I'm 30, looking back, like, I was so scared, and I wish I had support system that was there to say, that were more than my friends, to say, you know, you're going to be okay, because I didn't know I was going to be okay. And so that's why this work is important, to say, you will be okay. I really think sometimes it's just pure luck that I survived, because there were so many things that have happened to me. But it doesn't have to be luck. It doesn't have to be luck for everyone. There can be systems put in place to protect people.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Payzee Mahmod. Payzee is the ambassador for our IKWRO, a campaigner to end child marriage and honor-based abuse, as well as a successful fashion stylist. She has made it a mission to tackle these harmful practices and break the silence on these abuses within her own family. Paramount to her approach is the decision to speak out as a survivor and change maker, not a victim. Please welcome Payzee.
Hi everyone, my name is Payzee Mahmood. Thank you so much for having me, Savira. It's really an honor to work with you, and I'm so proud of the youth who have organized this event. So I've experienced honor-based abuse growing up, and I now campaign against it, and I use my voice to raise awareness on it with the charity IKWRO and also Savera, who are dedicated charities to eradicate honor-based abuse. So now today during the session, you've heard a little bit about honor-based abuse, but I want to tell you a bit more and share some examples, because I think often people wonder, what does honor-based abuse look like, or how can I recognize it, or how can I know that I'm experiencing it and get support on it? So for me, I can't quite pinpoint the age that I started experiencing it, but I feel like it was pretty much always there as part of my life. And as a little girl around the age of 9, I had already gone under the procedure of FGM, and so did my sisters. So the only way that was explained to me when I got older was that it was done because it was something that just had to be done, and it was something that was part of my traditions, and all the girls had to go through this. I didn't really understand it for a long time, but I think as I got older and the more I learned about FGM, the more I realized that it's wrong and that it's just abuse. So growing up as a teenager in London was really tough for me, and I'm sure that some of you listening will relate that just generally speaking, being a teenager is just, you know, it's a tough time. You go through so many changes, like physically, mentally, and socially, and there's just so many changes happening in your life. But my teenage years didn't have just that. I remember being as young as 11 years old, and the rules in my life just kept getting stricter and stricter. For example, I wasn't allowed to have any friends outside of school, especially boys. I was never allowed to speak to boys, and I wasn't allowed to wear shorts in PE. I wasn't allowed to wear a skirt with my school uniform. And when all my friends started wearing makeup, even just things like lip gloss and nail varnish, I was never allowed to. And all these things I'm describing are just like really simple things that you do as a teenager, you know, as a child, like listening to music and playing out with your mates. And they're just so normal to all of us. But in my household, they weren't normal. And the reason those things weren't allowed was always because it was shameful and it was dishonorable. And I remember I always heard, you can't do these things because you're a girl. You'll bring shame on the family, or you will dishonor the family. And those were the things that I just heard like throughout my life growing up. But the thing is, I knew deep down that it was wrong because none of my friends lived like that. They just had like what you describe as just like normal lives. And then when I was 16, things took a really horrible turn. One of my sisters, so I've got quite a big family, 4 sisters, and I'm one of 5. So one of my older sisters was actually taken into social care because of the abuse that was going on in my household. But to the extended family that were looking in and the community, what my sister had done by leaving that abusive household, she'd actually brought shame and dishonor on the family. So my dad decided that getting me and my other sister married really young was the only way for him to recover his honor. So literally in the blink of an eye, like overnight, my whole life just changed. I was 16, I'd just done my GCSEs. And the next thing I knew, I was introduced to this man who was much older than me. And the first time I met him, he was going to be my husband. And I had no say in the marriage. It was going to go ahead whether I liked it or not. So from the beginning of that marriage, it was abusive. And I remember at school, I wasn't allowed to have access to sex education. So I had no idea what sex was. I had no idea what relationships were, what healthy relationships were. So that really left me without any knowledge of how to navigate this marriage that I'd found myself in, you know, because I'd never had a boyfriend or anything like that. So I remember, again, being 16 and very early on in my marriage, I actually got pregnant. I didn't have a clue what pregnancy was. I didn't know how this happened. I was completely clueless. And I was really pressured by my family to have the baby. But I just knew that I wanted so much more from my life, and that having a baby with this abusive husband meant that I would probably be stuck with him forever. So I had no support, no one helped me, no one was there for me. I decided that I wanted to have an abortion. And I went ahead with that on my own. So at the same time, my sister, Banaz, was also in the same exact position. She was just 1.5 years older than me, and she had the same type of marriage, and we were both married for 2 years. And throughout those marriages, we both experienced pretty much the same treatment. So domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and honor-based abuse throughout those 2 years. But I think my sister knew that she had to do something, and she reached out to the police several times to actually make reports about what was going on. But the police that she was going to had no idea what honor-based abuse was. So they never really actually chased it up. And eventually, she made a really brave decision, and she decided to leave her marriage and then go back to my family home. But again, this was another thing that was classed as dishonorable. And within 6 months of her going back to my family home, my sister's life was taken in a so-called honor killing. And it's really sad that honor-based abuse can actually go to this very extreme end of the spectrum. It not only harms people's lives and their mental state and their emotional state, but it can also kill. And there's a lot of misconception around honor-based abuse. Often people think that it can be excused by culture and tradition and religion. But the truth is, it's just abuse. And I'm sure you will all agree that abuse is not part of any culture or religion or any tradition. So for me, since I have gone through my experiences and since I've lost my sister in such a tragic way, I've decided to use my voice on behalf of so many women who are going through this and who've gone through this and who don't have the voice or don't have the strength to speak up. Because I know there are so many people that go through this. And it's not something that I think a lot of people think this happens so far away, you know, somewhere really, really far away, but this is actually happening in places like the UK and Australia and India, and it's just generally a global issue. And that's why I think we've got to use everything that we've learned today to take action against honor-based abuse. And we're all responsible for making sure that we're not bystanders and that we step in when someone around us is going through this. So there's things to look out for if you think that someone is going through it, but you're not sure. For example, if someone is not turning up to school, I know Maya mentions that some of her friends were just not coming to school and she wouldn't see them for months. But if that's happening, like whether at school or at work, or someone has really low motivation and you see that they're really excessively controlled by their family or their partner, you need to, it's your responsibility to actually step in and just check that someone is okay. And I think it's really important to remember that you're never going to hurt somebody by just checking that they're okay. So now what I do is I work with charities like Savera and IKWRO who work tirelessly to end these practices and to support anyone who's going through them. And for me, ending honor-based abuse and approaching this topic is all about awareness and education and training. And that's across the board. I'm talking about teachers and GPs and hospitals, the police, social workers, so that they're aware when somebody actually presents these signs that they're going through honor-based abuse, and that they're not unseen and unheard, like my sister was, for example. And finally, I also believe that we need changes in the legislation. So I actually have a campaign to end child marriage in the UK, because at the moment, with the law that we have set in place, as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, you can actually get married with parental consent. So essentially, it's not your choice anyway. Your parents have to consent to you getting married. But what can happen with that is that can be used as coercion to get you into a marriage like mine, for example. So my petition actually has 110 signatures, well over that, but I'd really appreciate it if all of you signed it. It's actually calling on the government to tackle this issue and to safeguard young people, because it's our duty to safeguard one of the most vulnerable groups in our societies. And I just want to end on by saying that if you are going through any of the things I've described today, or one of your friends is, or someone you know at work, just remember that you and them are not alone, and that you can get support on what you're going through. You can get advice, you can do that confidentially, and you can just speak to somebody, even if it's just to check, is this what I'm going through? I'm not sure. So you can contact Savira or you can contact IKWRO for any advice. And don't think that this is something you have to suffer. It's not your fault, and abuse is not part, and everybody should be able to live without abuse in their life. Thank you so much.
It's like, it's so hard for so many people to be able to find help, but we are trying to break the silence and get to all together to actually be able to stop all of those things from happening. So thank you so much, Payzee. We have mentioned earlier that we've done the quiz with Maya, and we're going to be announcing the winner at the end of this event. I would like to invite like other participants to just send more questions in our Q&A box, which they will be answered by our lovely Payzee and Kiara, and yeah, about the member of the panel. So we have a question from Matthew Thompson, and he asked, have you had any negative responses for anyone since you took your stance against harmful practices? I will ask maybe Payzee to answer this question.
To be honest with you, I haven't had any direct, let's say, pushback on the topics that I'm talking about. I know that some people are not ready for these conversations, or they see these conversations as taboo, like, oh, you know, we can't discuss these things, they're just part of our tradition. But I think I just see it as it's really important to make sure that we speak to those people and we talk to them about the lifelong harm that these practices carry, and that you can't excuse them with culture and religion and things like that. So I'm glad to say that I haven't had any direct pushback, but as I said, I'm sure there's people who disagree with it, but that's maybe because they just don't understand fully what actually this causes.
Thank you, Payzee. We also have a question from Katie Balmer, and she asked, if there was one thing you want us to take away from this webinar, what would it be? I would just direct the question to Kiara.
I would say that, like Payzee said, check on your friends, your colleagues. The warning signs are usually there, and it's quite important to not feel like, am I overstepping? Because when it comes to life and death, I don't think there is such thing as overstepping, because ultimately at the core of it is care, that you care enough to ask somebody how they are. But that is also doesn't mean that you judge somebody or judge victims. And really it's just supporting in a way that is not victim blaming.
Yeah, I completely agree. We also have a question, and oh, by the way, if anyone is still want to be asked any question to Maya about what we've been talking today, or any of us of part of the Youth Advisory Board, you're more than welcome to drop questions in the Q&A box. But our next question is from Iman Hafiz, and she asked, I am Pakistani myself, and I have an interest in this topic. The murder of Binaz Mahmood and Kedal Baloch shaped my dissertation and realized the extent of how emergency services failed her and other individuals who have or are experiencing these culturally driven crimes. I would love to speak with someone from Savera about this and my findings, as I would love to spread awareness and support Savera charity too. How do I help and join campaigns to help raise awareness with Savera? I think maybe one of our youth advisory member should answer this question.
Hi, thanks for your question. I could try and answer this. So it's really good and promising to hear that you've written your dissertation on it. As we've been saying, obviously a lot more awareness is needed to be raised. The fact you've done a piece of academic work on it is wonderful, so thank you for that. If you want to join us, just kind of drop us a message and contact us. It might seem a bit overwhelming, like it's a big charity and everything, but I literally just found everyone and was such a welcoming group that you'd really enjoy it. So if you were to go on the Savera website, there's a little bit about the Savera Youth bit. So you can join us on there, and we accept people up to the age of 25, and then you'd kind of, after 25, just join Savera UK. So just the website is saverayouth.co.uk, and we'll be happy to have you with us. Thanks.
Thank you. And we also have a question from Jerry, and he asked, after awareness has been raised, what is the next step? If you're not family and the victim are scared to speak out, how can you make a difference if you detect abuse? I think if Payzee would be able to answer this question, that would be great.
I think I would say the most important thing is to make sure that you are confident in approaching the person. And that comes with having awareness on the issue, having education on the issue, and knowing that when you sort of intervene and you check if the person is okay, being able to support them through that. So just maybe doing some research on what charities, for example, like Savira, doing some research on how to actually help and support them. Sometimes all someone needs in this situation is just to know that they have someone they can speak to. So I think don't worry that if you're not very close to the person or you're outside of the family, the main thing is that you care enough to actually check in on the person and you're spotting the signs.
Yeah, thank you, Payzee. That was amazing. We have a question from Asia Schuler, and this is for Maya, and it says, "Hi Maya, what are your thoughts on the fact that we still refer to these harmful practices as honor or honor-based violence? Do we need to change the terminology to acknowledge that this does not bring honor and it is a crime, actually?"
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not the best person to answer this question, but 100%. I think obviously the word honor can be completely misleading if that's what we're trying to say it's not, because it is abuse. It's abuse under every level. So yeah, I completely agree. I think if there was a way to get it changed so it's not called honor abuse and it's just straight abuse, it does still fit into that category. But yeah, to change the whole wording of it, 100%. But I don't know how you do that. How do we change the name of it? I don't know if any of the other girls in this chat know, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I would, at first, I was thinking, by the way, if you can hear my children, I think they just got bored of me not paying attention to them. So, so at first I was thinking maybe getting rid of the word honor, but I think what's important is to give name to what you experience, because I remember being told that I was bringing shame and dishonor and that I had to be punished because of that, and that's why abuse was happening to me, because it was my fault, because I'm dishonoring the family. So I think once we get rid of, we stop naming it as honor-based, we sort of get away from naming the abuse, like in the language that it's used to describe it within the family and community. So I don't have a proper, I think it depends.
Yeah, but that makes sense. That does make sense. I mean, it puts it into the category that it is, and it means that we all understand what it is exactly. Yeah, as I said, it's both. It's abuse as well.
I think just to echo what Maya and Kiara were saying is it's really important for people to know the motivation behind the crime, behind like the abuse. So I think it helps people to address it once it's labeled, but at the same time it's so tricky because it does come under the umbrella of abuse. It is just a human rights violation. But I think it's really important for people, especially professionals, to know that this type of abuse is being motivated by honor.
I think as well, one effective way, if we can't actually change the name honor-based abuse, is to, when we always write about it and speak out about it, is to put quotation marks around the word honor, so that we emphasize that it's not actually honor, it's so-called honor, and that gets around the problem of not being able to change what it's called, but also making people aware that it's not actually honor.
We have one more last question that we're going to be addressing, and it says, what kind of support does Savera offer or advice signpost to if you were considered that someone was a victim of honor-based abuse? And I think maybe if one of the other members of the Youth Advisory Board will answer this question, that would be fantastic.
So basically, we offer confidential and culturally sensitive advice. So there'll be absolutely no judgment when you do come, when you have the courage to speak out. There'll be no judgment, and it'll be completely confidential, so nothing will but get back to anyone. So for those at risk, we have a helpline that operates that you can contact. So all the information is actually on the Savira website. And if you're even worried to go on our website, once you type it in, if I guess someone were to come and see, there's a little exit button, and that'll take you straight to BBC News, so people wouldn't know that you've been on the website. It will be on your search history, but it'd be worth just to clear that. And yeah, we've got the helpline and everything, so it'd be worth just looking on our website.
Thank you, Anna, for that. I think now Malcolm is going to be reading a poem. So one of our members of the Youth Advisory Board have wrote a poem and is going to share it with us. So, Malcolm.
Thanks, Ale. I'm going to read you a poem called Speaking Out, which I wrote during lockdown. When I say speak out, I don't mean speak about the normality of life. What I mean is have a voice of ambition of change, because the power behind our voices cannot be underestimated or tamed. Let the people know about the suffering, deaths, trauma, and the pain. When I say take a stand, I don't mean go and stand on the highest point of the world. What I mean is stand up and take a stand for what's wrong and dark in this world. I'm speaking out because I've had their stories of pain and trauma that has brought darkness and horror to their lives. I've seen their tears. I'm speaking out for those whose voices have been shut down or have not been heard. I'm speaking out for the next generation, so a change must be made, and freedom should be theirs. We live for today with our youthful spirit and energy for change. Thank you very much.
So we can just go through some ways of how to get involved in speaking out about honour-based abuse now. So if some of the youth members would like to speak about some of the ways we can get involved.
So one of the ways that you can join Savera UK Youth Advisory Board, we lead on projects that aim to educate about harmful practices, gender identity, and other issues that concern young people today. We have held a conference launched on our exhibition in London and held a question time event, made a film that is nominated for an award, and more. If you would like to get involved in the social action, then sign up using the sheet or speak to one of us for more information. So just there's an email that is on Savera UK Youth website, and just send us an email of your details if you want to get involved with us.
You can also join our #I'mSpeakingOut campaign. We want people to join us in speaking out about these subjects and break the stigma and taboo around discussing things like female genital mutilation, forced marriage, and honour-based abuse. There are people out there who can't speak out, so by breaking the silence, we are giving them a voice. To find out more about our campaign, you can visit our website.
So you guys, you can also volunteer for us. We need volunteers to support our service. So if you have any particular skills, like if you rap, if you do poetry, photography, anything, that could be useful to Savera UK and want to help make a difference in our local communities, then feel free to sign up just using the sheet or speak to a member of the Savera UK staff.
You can fundraise for us. So obviously, because we're a charity, we need funding. So we'd be very grateful for anyone who can fundraise for us in any way possible. You could do a bake sale, a sponsored run, or whichever way you feel is more like you, more your kind of way to raise money. So your support is always greatly appreciated. And you can find out how to fundraise for us on our website.
It would also be great if you can share what you have learned today with other people, because by sharing the information on what harmful practices actually is, you're allowing someone else to gain tools and have the possibility to speak out about those harmful practices. because as we know, young people are the future, and we obviously have to all come together and actually join hands together if we want to allow no further harm to happen, and we want to let those taboo topics to actually be broken and actually not be seen as it anymore. And also, like, by sharing like what harmful practices is, and also like what Savera UK Services does, you could potentially be reaching someone that might actually need help. And you could have like one small thing such as just speaking out could be potentially saving someone's life. You just don't know. So it would be great if you just share what you have learned today with other people.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Maya's gonna announce the winners of the quiz. So all the members are gonna do a drum roll soon and announce out the winners. Okay.
Oh, I was muted, sorry. Okay, so let me get into the chat so I don't get people's names wrong. Right, our winners are dun dun dun, dun.
Okay.
Katie Balmer, Sakina, and AJ Sonny. Woo, 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 woo.
Brilliant.
Congratulations, guys. So all you need to do is just email info@saverauk.co.uk with the subject, so in the title, #speaking out with Maya Jama winner, and then you'll get your prize. So that, just to remind you, is info, INFO, @saverauk.co.uk. Subject #speaking out with Maya Jama, and you'll get your prize. So congratulations again, Katie, Sakina, and AJ Sonny. No, thanks everyone for tuning in as well and taking part, and massive thank you to everyone that's spoken and you guys helping out and everyone that did the poll. It's been lovely to be a part of.
Thank you. It was so nice having you with us.
Just been smiling away in the background, like. But yeah, it's amazing. I'm super inspired as well, and such brave stories, girls, for speaking out too.